What knowledge might save your life one day? I read this possibly on another thread or even on this one. If you smell something close to fish, or even urine, it's possible you may have an electrical fire. Electrical fires tend to smell like fish, and, when exposed to high heat, urine. Or maybe your cat had a snack and decided to pee on the carpet. And if you smell rotten eggs, it's natural gas. Get out immediately and call 911. That water you're about to dive into might not be as deep as you think. Always just step in and swim down to check for depth. Then jump. Always do this. My dad told me a story about a group of guys he knew from school. After graduation they all went up to someone's lake house, and one guy decided to dive off the dock. As soon as they got there the water was shallow that year, and when he dove in he broke his neck and died on impact. If you're taking blood thinners, you should know they increase the risks of bleeding. You should watch out for signs of bleeding like pallor, breathlessness, multiple rash, bleeding gums or nose, red urine. If you accidentally cut yourself, take great care of the cut. You could bleed out if you don't. At the pharmacy today a regular patient died because she got a cut on her leg while gardening, but didn't think much about it. But because she was on blood thinners, she bled out during the night. 1 out of 20 people will get bowel cancer in their lifetime. You need some sort of screening starting at age 45 to 50 depending on your family history. Any blood in the stool needs to be checked out. Early cancers can be completely cured with keyhole surgery. You don't have to die of bowel cancer. If the tide suddenly goes out unexpectedly, run like you stole it, for higher ground. I read about a 10-year-old English girl who had just learned this before going on vacation with her family to Thailand. Then the big tsunami that killed a few 100,000 came. She saw the water retreat and the other tourists walk out on the exposed seafloor. She freaked out and convinced everybody to run for higher ground. A lot of people were saved by a little girl who had paid attention in school. They later brought a lot of flowers to the teacher. Imagine how terrifying that must be, knowing that a huge unstoppable wave is traveling hundreds of kilometers per hour to your location. And most people don't listen to you, just thinking you're a stupid kid who doesn't know any better. The last time this was asked I actually read something that later, at the very least, saved my ass. Don't try to put out a grease fire with water. You must smother it. I have an ABC fire extinguisher in the kitchen, and one by the outside grill. Everyone should have at least one in the house. The instinct of wolves will only cause them to attack/hunt you if they can intimidate you into fleeing from them. Standing your ground against a wolf pack will be terrifying, but will eventually cause them to bugger off. So does it help if I start screaming like a madman? Being loud will help. That is talking loudly. Maybe put on some music on your phone or make other loud sounds. But I would avoid screaming like a schoolgirl. Me, slowly backing away from angry tiger. My phone, my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard and they're like, tigers as well. Don't turn your eyes away from a tiger. There is a story of a boy that had to walk backwards for 3 hours back to his village, being stalked by a tiger. The cost benefit of a prey animal even slightly hurting a tiger is not worth it. It could mean a death sentence in the wild. I broke eye contact by looking down with a tiger yesterday that was behind a fence 3 feet away, and he jumped at me. I looked up and he was standing straight up with his arms stretched above his head and claws on the fence. I swear to God he was at least 8 foot tall. I very nearly shat myself. Solid defense mechanism. Who wants to eat food covered in shit? All snakes in Victoria, Australia are venomous. Contrary to common myth, you can file a missing persons report before 24 hours have passed. Putting it off a day because they went missing that night could very easily be the difference between them being found or not. I believe a large portion of missing persons will be dead after 24 hours and an even greater percentage will be dead after 48 hours. So yeah, don't put it off if you think something is wrong. Better to be safe than sorry. Edit. I didn't word this right. This is true in cases of abductions, where the abductee is killed. Basically the point is, don't waste time if this sort of thing happens. If you're alone and start choking with nobody around to give you the heimlich, you can give yourself the heimlich by using the back of a chair or similar objects like the sidearm of a couch or whatever. Forcefully throw your stomach over the back of the chair a few times. Try to mimic the motion of the Heimlich. Push in above the belly button, then up, kind of like a J motion. I remember reading in a Reddit post similar to this, that if you can't do a pull-up if you have to get out of moving car, then put one foot down and take a step. Don't just jump out. This will reduce your speed immensely. Sure, you will fall over, but at a much reduced speed. A stuntman told me this. I had to leave moving car that was going about 40 miles per hour. I was pregnant. I had a medium-sized purse and a pillow. The man driving the car had said he was going to kill us both if he couldn't have me, and was going in and out of oncoming traffic. I grabbed my bag and pillow and held the pillow across my stomach and opened the door and thought, if I go like a rag doll, except my arm holding my stomach and my other arm with my purse covered my face, but everything else I tried to relax. I stepped out and let myself fall and roll. It was amazing. I ended up with just a handful of bruises and scrapes, and I was fine. And my daughter is 14 now. We made it. Always question yourself, especially under the influence. Maybe not your life, but everyone should have basic first aid / CPR training if possible. My dad collapsed on Saturday morning when he got up to go to the toilet, and neither me or my mum know basic first aid or CPR. The ambulance took 8 minutes to arrive, and we only live 4 streets away from the depot. Luckily he came to, but there was a point where he stopped breathing. If he continued to not breathe, 8 minutes would be too late. Please learn and hope you don't need it, instead of needing it and not knowing. If someone is trying to abduct you, fight back. Most abductors will just give up if they meet resistance. And whatever you do, don't let them take you to another location. If your car is going underwater, an electronic roll down button will work regardless of the water pressure outside the car, but a manual handle is much more difficult. You also won't be able to open the door. It's better to have something in the glove box, like an ice scraper, to break the glass with. Mythbusters did a whole thing on it. When people say to take an aspirin to help during a heart attack, chew the pill, don't swallow it whole. It gets absorbed much quicker. Direct pressure on bleeding is always the first step. On mobile, so no good link, but a / stop the bleed class is a great way to learn more and practice things like applying a tourniquet. Search for one in your area, usually only an hour long or so. If you're ever charged by a moose, get behind a tree. They have about a 10-inch blind spot and they'll lose you. If a person asks you for something in the street, a light, the time, whatever, always keep the person in your eye line. So if they ask for the time, don't just look down at your watch. Raise your arm slightly so your watch is in sight. I was told this years ago at a self-defense thing at a corporate retreat type of event, and I wondered if it was ever going to be useful or just something to pad out the teacher's session. Then, a decade later, I was on the street late at night on my way home, and someone approached me and asked for the time. I did this, told him the time, and he just kinda stood there. Then he started asking some weird, clearly improvised, question about how he was looking for his friend's house, and he was sure it was on that street, and he had a yellow car similar to the one behind me. I didn't look back but just said, yeah, yellow, and he pointed directly behind me. I said, yeah, the yellow car. I saw it as I walked by, so. He paused for a second, looking like that meme of the woman with the equations around her head, then just yelled, "Oh, frick you," and stormed off. It was only afterwards I realized that I think he wanted me to look away so he could slug me, but he wasn't prepared to attack someone that was looking right at him. When touching something electrical, use the back of your hand. Using your palm on, say, a live wire will cause your hand to grab it and you'd be unable to let go. 911 dispatcher here. If someone is missing, overdue or otherwise isn't where they should be or not answering their phone or texts, there is absolutely no requirement to wait 24 hours to report. This is a myth perpetuated by movies and TV. While I can't tell you exactly when you should call, here are some good rules of thumb. For children under 12 years old, call as soon as you believe they are missing. Don't mess around. Minutes can count with kids. If you absolutely must, you can check the obvious areas or known hiding places prior to calling. You will not get in trouble for calling 911 or emergency services, even if you locate the kid before anyone is on scene. Missing children are taken very seriously, and we'd rather you call early and find them before we have a chance to help than for you to call later and lower the chance of finding them. For everyone else, it depends. Again, these are some things to think about and not set in stone. So a good rule of thumb is, if you're unsure if you should call, just call. But things to think about. Are they answering their cell phone or reading/responding to texts? Do they have a serious medical condition? And do you know if they have their medication? Are they suicidal or have been in the past? Are they able to care for themselves? Do they have some form of dementia or some other mental issues that cause them to be confused/hallucinate/etc? Some examples. If your wife texted you 30 minutes ago saying she'll be home in 20 minutes, she has no mitigating factors, healthy, not suicidal, etc. Maybe wait a little bit, even if she's not answering the phone. Phone could be dead, and she decided to pick up dinner or run an errand before coming home. While I can't tell you exactly when it would be appropriate to call in this situation, use your best judgment. Even calling early in this situation, you won't get in trouble. But it likely won't be a high priority call either. Your elderly grandfather who has early stages of Alzheimer's, who is diabetic, and requires regular doses of medication isn't at his home. His keys, wallet, and medication are all at home. Call immediately, don't hesitate. Those are two extremes. TL, doctor, don't wait 24 hours to report a missing person. Kids and the elderly, call as soon as you believe they're missing. Everyone else, call earlier rather than later, but use your judgment based on the circumstances. Edit. I'm going to be that person. Sorry. Thank you, kind person, for my first gold. In commemoration, I'm going to give another important, potentially life-saving tip when calling 911 or whatever your location's emergency services number is. The most important piece of information you can give your 911 dispatcher is your location. With nothing more than a location, I can get someone started to you, even if I don't know anything else about the situation. Not only that, giving a location early can save both of us valuable time if you connected to the incorrect jurisdiction. Do not rely on your phone giving your dispatcher good location information. We deal with something called a confidence or uncertainty factor when dealing with location for mobile phones. That factor is measured in meters and represents a circle with a radius of that distance from a point that we are given. You are calling from somewhere in that circle. Sometimes we get an uncertainty factor of 3 or 4 meters, which will tell us basically where you are. More commonly, it's in the tens of meters or higher. Try to give us the best location information you can. An address with apartment or space number is best. Cross streets will work well for anything on or near the streets, or if you don't know the address, you could say it's the Walgreens at X/Y cross streets. Please don't say it happened on Pine Street. Streets are usually long and that is still a large area. In addition, if it's a small residential street, many computer-aided dispatch (CAD) systems aren't designed to work with just a street name, so just having the one small street will not help us locate you. Lastly, we are all aware of and trained to deal with the situation of not knowing where you are. There are a variety of reasons you might not know where you are. The only thing I can tell you here is get as much information about where you are as you can. A piece of mail, a street sign, a landmark. I can't possibly detail every possible scenario, but we can and will work with whatever we can. Too often someone will be calling for a real emergency and they tell me what's going on, tell me to get help, but don't tell me where they are. We need to know where you are. We will use whatever we can to determine where an emergency is occurring, but telling us where you are is the quickest way to get help started your way. If someone gets stabbed, do not take the knife out if possible. If it stays in, it acts as a plug to the hole and will reduce blood loss. Apply pressure around the wound as best as you can and call an ambulance. And if you get stabbed and the attacker withdraws the knife, seal off the wound with a credit card, especially if it's to the lung. Edit. I'm on my way out of the country and turned on my phone to find that this is putting people's lives in danger. By seal off the wound I meant create suction by putting the card flat on the wound. Don't just jam it in there and dig around. I saw this in an instructional video for police like a year ago. And if you get stabbed and the attacker withdraws the knife, do not reinsert the knife back into the wound. You won't align it properly and just make the wound much worse. Make a new wound and leave the knife in that one. Know how to spot a stroke. An easy way to remember is the acronym FAST. Face. Is one side of your face droopy? Can you fully smile? Arms. Can you hold your arms out straight? Speech. Are you unintentionally slurring your words? Time. Call an ambulance right away. Time is of the essence. Edit. RIP inbox. There's a few things I should add to this, based on what some others in the medical profession have said below. The acronym is now BEFAST. It is adding balance and eyes. Also, in regards to time, call 911 immediately, but also try to find out when the symptoms started. If they just started, make note of the time. Otherwise, try and find out from people who were around. Finally, you do not have to have all of the above symptoms in order to be having a stroke. One or fewer is possible as well. BEFAST is just a good acronym that is easy for the public to remember. Wear a helmet. Wear a seatbelt. It may not be cool, but you're more fragile than you lead yourself to believe. I've lost 3 friends because of these. Don't be a statistic, please. There's someone that would miss you and think I just wish they had put a helmet/seatbelt on. If someone threatens you with a gun or something and they want to move you to another location, your chance of dying goes up considerably if you agree to relocate. If you're being pulled out to sea by a current, swim parallel to the shore while letting yourself be carried out until you're out of its grip rather than waste your energy fighting against it. Also, thanks to a current UK SAP, don't thrash in cold water as your gasping reflex will drown you. Instead, attempt to float until the reflex passes, then you can address the situation. Firefighter training. If there is a fire, crawl out of the building. Do not stand up to run. 1 or 2 breaths of smoke are enough to do major damage and require hospitalization if you get out at all. It may be warm where you are crawling, but standing up can cook your skin and your lungs. The smoke at eye level can be more than 600 deg.C, 1200 deg.F. If you can't see and don't know the room layout, crawl with your feet/legs in front of you, sliding on your ass. Do not crawl face first, or you may take a dive down a staircase in the confusion. This reminds me, if you're caught in a river while tubing, rafting, etc., you may be tempted to doggy paddle to save energy, but you want to turn your body as best you can to float on your back, so your feet are in the direction of the current. Your feet, loose legs, do not lock your knees, will take the impact of any submerged rocks, etc., and you can push away from them rather than getting a head or chest injury. This is advisable usually only for whitewater scenarios. A side stroke is usually the most energy efficient method of swimming for a rescue if there's no danger of underwater hazards. This is advisable usually only for whitewater scenarios. A side stroke is usually the most energy efficient method of swimming for a rescue if there's no danger of underwater hazards. What won't kill you in Australia? The wildlife. What will kill you? Getting lost in the outback. If you're lost and out of fuel, stay with your vehicle. Move as little as possible during the day and stay in the shade. Conserve water. Rip off wing mirrors to shine at any search planes. You can drink your urine approximate 1 to 3 times before your kidneys start to pack it in. This is absolute last resort. Don't ever stop performing CPR on a person until the EMTs take their body away. CPR doesn't wake up a person, it's to force blood to their brain to prevent brain death, so that the EMTs can revive that person. Polar bears have insane ADHD. If one is chasing you, intermittently drop clothing items like a hat or gloves. It will stop to sniff them. Normal prey animals don't shed whole pieces of themselves. The bear will be perplexed. Thank you for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to click on that subscribe button to see more contents from us. I will see you next time.